So let's talk about decoding dating profiles. I'm going to save you a lot of time with just a couple of red flags that you can look for so you don't waste your time actually corresponding with these types of people and finding out things aren't what they seem. So one sad but true reality is that even though there are so many people online, it's estimated that 1/3 of people online are actually in relationships or married. So you definitely want to avoid that when you can, and here's some things you can look for. They usually do make the first contact, but that's normal. A lot of people do that. But what happens is that their response time is very sporadic. So you may have a really good email correspondence going and it's another 4 days before you hear from them, or you may call them, it always goes to voicemail, and it takes a few days for them to call you back. Another clue as to someone being married is if they're only calling you from a restricted phone number. So if they're hesitant to give you their information, if they're calling you from a restricted phone number, this may be a tip-off that they are not actually single. So when we go into safety and stuff, I'll give you a little more tips on how to protect yourself against that. When it comes to looking at profiles and deciding what you're actually going to read through, you know, there's a happy medium. You don't want too little text, and you definitely don't want too much text. So the tip-off is if someone only writes like 1 or 2 sentences, or like ask me when we meet, like that's definitely someone you want to avoid. They're not even willing to put forth the effort to write a paragraph about themselves. On the opposite end of the spectrum are these men and women that write novels, and literally it would take you 30 minutes to make it through their entire, description of who they are and what they're looking for. And honestly, these people are very long-winded and probably have too much time on their hands at the end of the day, so I would just avoid them. Here's another tip-off for photos. When looking at someone's profile photo, if it's really blurry, if it's a bit grainy, it's kind of bad lighting, and they only have one photo, that's probably a tip-off that there's more than meets the eye. When you meet them in person, you'll find out that photo was from 10 years ago, or you just don't know what you're dealing with. At this point, technology is good enough. People should have multiple photos, and they should have headshots as well as body shots to give you the full impression of who they are. Here's a tip for women. If you see a guy whose photos are all of him topless, trying to look seductive, maybe even striking like a muscle pose, definitely avoid those men. They're either egomaniacs or they are looking to get laid. And then there's also a lot of men out there that, I don't know why they don't just do a free site, but they're on these paid sites, and instead of writing, a message, they say, I am not paying for this membership, so please contact me at jimsmith@gmail. And, I would avoid those guys because they seem really cheap to begin with, that they can't even spend, the $10 to $20 for an online membership.